The second largest Bitcoin treasury company just quietly changed their strategy, allowing them to sell some Bitcoin. And they hold over 50,000 Bitcoin. But the shocking thing about this story is they're not the only huge company selling their Bitcoin. And until now, we've all blamed Jane Street or Wall Street for suppressing Bitcoin's price. But what if there's a simpler explanation for Bitcoin's price decline? And what is going to happen now that Jane Street's been exposed? Guys, let's just look at the facts here. Since the Jane Street court case and everyone blamed Jane Street, the 10 a.m. dump has been off the table. Very surprising yesterday, considering what happened over the weekend, a war in Iran. Everyone was expecting Bitcoin to dump. In fact, if you're looking at the markets today, trillions of dollars have been wiped out of stocks literally in the first hour. Gold is retracing, silver's retracing. Yes, Bitcoin had a pullback, but it's holding up very strong, surprisingly holding up very strong. Anyways, that's just a little context for everything going on in the global markets right now. Let's jump into this story. So the first story, and I think this made a lot of waves for a lot of people because as we've been talking about on this show for a while, it does almost seem like the hype cycle in the Bitcoin treasury companies is starting to die down. And there is some worrying data points coming out of the Bitcoin treasury companies. A lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies have been saying, hey, we're never going to sell any Bitcoin. Turns out, we are seeing some selling. Now, this isn't Mara selling Bitcoin, but this change of them saying, hey, we will potentially sell some Bitcoin, it probably isn't the best narrative for the Bitcoin treasury companies, especially since Mara is literally the second biggest Bitcoin treasury company in the world. Now, here's coming from the block. I do have a clarification from Mara themselves, but let's start with the initial news story. So, headline from Block, Mara opens door to selling stockpiled Bitcoin in new policy shift, which is a huge move away from what they've done in the past. They have been very big, Mara, one of the biggest Bitcoin mining public companies. They've been saying, hey, we're going to hodl all of our Bitcoin. They might sell some of their mined Bitcoin, but their Bitcoin balance sheet up until yesterday, or rather up until we found out yesterday, they said we're never going to sell any of that Bitcoin. Now they are changing the verbiage on this. They are kind of changing their tune a little bit. And I think a lot of Bitcoiners are like, oh man, here we go. They're going to start dumping on us. I think there is a little nuance in what they wrote, and I will cover that after this Block article. So just quick take. Mara said it revised its digital asset management strategy for 2026 to permit sales of Bitcoin held on its balance sheet. Again, the Bitcoin treasury, they said they're potentially, got some plans to at least allow us to sell some Bitcoin, expanding beyond its 2025 policy that only allowed sales from mining production. Of course, the company holds 53,822 Bitcoin worth $4.7 billion as of December 31st, 2025, including a 9,377 Bitcoin loan and 5,938 Bitcoin pledged against $350 million in outstanding credit facilities. Now, I think the reason this is making people a little uneasy is the thought of them dumping $4.7 billion or $4 billion on the market in one go. Now, they're not saying that that is going to happen, but that is what the rumor mill, that's what the engagement bait is saying on Twitter. It's this idea of like, if they had to sell their 53,000 Bitcoin in one chunk, because again, it's usually if there's worrying signs, the saying, if there's smoke, there might be fire. Now, I'm personally not in that camp thinking that is what's going on. I think this might be a good financial decision for them to have a little more financial flexibility. But let's go into this. So, of course, they did a 10K filing with the SEC, and this was the biggest kind of news that came out of this, is obviously their policy revision and a departure, as this article says, from the company's historical approach of holding mined Bitcoin as long-term investment. And, of course, this does follow 2025, where the price didn't really do as much as we thought it was going to do. And therefore, as we have been seeing in the Bitcoin mining space, the margins are getting tight right now for public Bitcoin miners. Now, I will kind of, give my take on this after I cover this, but It is getting a little tough right now for Bitcoin miners. Obviously, the hash rate has been going up. The Bitcoin price has been going down. Yes, we saw the storm last year have a lot of hash rate go off the network, but now it's recently came back on. So the competition is back and forth. And especially if the price stays where it is for a while or even goes way lower, we could potentially see some of these big corporate treasuries or Bitcoin mining balance sheets having to sell a lot of Bitcoin. And in fact, we have saw that happen. So let me cover this quote here, and then I'll show you where all the selling has come from. And the big idea here, it's a very simple idea. And our boy Checkmatey has been saying it. It's not that there's necessarily price suppression happening. It's just there's a lot of Bitcoin being sold. We've been covering this all of last year. Obviously, as new narratives and new news stories and headlines come out, everyone always pinpoints or tries to blame a certain boogeyman. But in reality, it's probably just simple supply-demand dynamics. There's just a lot of Bitcoin being sold currently, and that's probably what is depressing the Bitcoin price. Added with all the macro and geopolitical uncertainty and chaos that we're seeing, it is a simpler case here. And obviously, first principles heuristics, we always try to, at the very least, get to the simplest explanation. I think what is Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is probably the best here. And it seems like we are just continuously seeing a lot of Bitcoin being sold. But this quote here is pretty interesting. It goes, quote, in the second half of 2025, we changed our digital asset management strategy to permit sales of Bitcoin generated from operations. And in 2026, we expanded the strategy to allow for sales of Bitcoin held on our balance sheet. Accordingly, we may hold Bitcoin for long-term investment purposes and may also buy or sell Bitcoin from time to time, subject to market conditions and our capital allocation priorities. Now, they did follow this up and essentially said, hey, this is fake news. Here's Robert Samuels, Vice President of Investor Relations at Mara, and he goes, this assertion that Mara has changed its strategy to sell the majority of our Bitcoin holdings is factually incorrect. Again, that's what people were saying on Twitter. It's like, oh man, the second biggest Bitcoin treasury company is going to dump 50,000 plus coins on the market, around $4 billion. What's that going to do to the Bitcoin price? It wouldn't be a good sight, just to say the least. Anyways, our 2026 10K clearly states we expanded our strategy to allow for sales of Bitcoin held on our balance sheet, meaning we may buy or sell from time to time, again, subject to market conditions and our capital allocation priorities. But in bold, it does not mean we intend to liquidate the majority of our reserves. Allowing for sales for strategic purposes is entirely different from a policy of selling down a majority of our Bitcoin treasury. Please do not conflate the two. And then further, there was another tweet where he said, and that is right here, he goes, as stated on Mara's earning calls, in 2026, we expect to continue to monetize Bitcoin opportunistically to enhance our financial flexibility, including to provide liquidity or to fund capital projects and other initiatives that we believe enhance long-term shareholder value, subject to market conditions and our capital allocation priorities. Expanded optionality inherently adds value. So there is this idea. Second biggest Bitcoin treasury company is going to liquidate their 53,000 Bitcoin. That's going to be the final capitulation to get to, as Nico's been saying, the 40K range. If we did see that, that would totally get us down to that range. Most likely, not necessarily because of the $4 billion in liquidity, but because of the panic that ensues afterwards and, cascading liquidations and just the drop. It'll just compound on each other. But you're probably asking, okay, well, where did all the Bitcoin get sold from? And that's where it does get a little interesting. Here is an article from Coindesk, and it goes, end of Bitcoin hodl public miners going all in on AI, signaling more Bitcoin selling. Public Bitcoin miner balance sheets are shifting its capital rotates from Bitcoin treasuries to AI infrastructure. So the short of it is we've seen many of the top 10 public Bitcoin miners sell over 15,000 Bitcoin to shift into AI infrastructure. 15,000 Bitcoin is a pretty penny. It's about $1 billion at today's price point. Roughly around $1 billion have been sold. And with Bitcoin nearly down 50% off all-time high, they're shifting from, Bitcoin public mining to AI. As we've seen in the last couple of weeks, there has been a huge drop in price since the end of 2025, and everyone's trying to pinpoint and figure out who's the big boogeyman, who's to blame right now. It always just goes back to the simple supply demand dynamics. There's just a lot of selling. There's a lot of coins being sold, and this is why the price is dumping currently. Of course, this isn't a new trend. We have heard for months with this idea of a lot of public Bitcoin miners, needing to, add shareholder value. And since the margins in Bitcoin mining are getting tougher, we are seeing a lot of public Bitcoin miners shift into the AI space. Could be a little too late for a lot of these, but you're seeing that Bitcoin mining is one of the most competitive spaces, one of the most competitive industries, period. The margins aren't that big, so you can't really blame these companies. But the fact we're seeing this much selling for AI, especially when Bitcoin's dropping, this is most likely where the quote-unquote price suppression is coming from. It's really just simple. There's more Bitcoin being sold than bought currently. And our boy Checkmatey, he's been saying this for a while. Look, we get caught up in the hot headlines. We all want to point out a big bad boogeyman, though the fact that ever since Jane Street did get that court case or did get sued for market manipulation, it is very interesting that we haven't seen any yet. And again, we're seeing the war in Iran start, and Bitcoin's been positive since the start of the war. It's actually outperforming gold right now. Gold's around like 16%. But Bitcoin, in the face of all the geopolitical macro uncertainties right now, Bitcoin's holding up extremely well. I was very surprised yesterday to see Bitcoin not tank on the news of the Iran war, on the markets opening up. And today, everyone thought yesterday was going to be a bloody Monday, but today, bloody Tuesday, we're seeing trillions of dollars wiped out of stocks, of gold, silver. It's a pretty bloody day out there. And Bitcoin, it's not really that crazy this morning. But anyways, before I pass it over to Nico and we chat about this, here's Checkmatey. This was at the end of February. And he goes, Jane Street didn't suppress Bitcoin's price, folks. Hodlers did. It's just not that hard. Stop summoning your inner salty gold bug, but by blaming manipulators, people sold a F-ton of spot Bitcoin. And here's the chart. You're seeing revised supply breakdown by age. We've seen a lot of Bitcoin sold since the October 10th dump. This is still a lot of Bitcoin, even for, bear market terms. Like, this is a lot of Bitcoin that's been sold on the market. And in the face of all of this, Bitcoin is still holding up pretty good. I know yesterday you guys were kind of right. I'll give you that. The chat said that this was a sucker's rally. I don't necessarily think it's over per se, but Bitcoin, I think, is very resilient right now. In the face of everything going on, I'm actually very surprised by how Bitcoin has reacted with all of the different news, with the amount of selling we've seen, the fact we're still in this 60K range. I believe it's around 67K right now. Bitcoin's holding up incredibly well. And you could argue maybe the different narratives of the, what was it in the past, gold repricing or gold rebalancing into Bitcoin. I don't know if that's exactly what's going on, but we are seeing gold retrace. Gold's not looking very good right now. It's looking a little toppy. Silver had a huge dump this morning, and Bitcoin just, had like a very normal correction this morning. It does look like maybe the narrative of Bitcoin being that neutral sovereign money that no one controls. I'm not saying it's playing out exactly as we all believe it will, but in the face of what is happening in the world right now, I think Bitcoin it's very interesting for a lot of people because it's not reacting how a lot of the pundits and analysts thought it was. Bitcoin's just kind of doing its own thing. It almost goes back to what we've always been saying. Bitcoin just does its own thing. It doesn't matter what's really going on in the world. The only thing that really matters is, are people buying and selling spot Bitcoin? And even though we're seeing a lot of Bitcoin being sold, we're seeing a lot of Bitcoin being bought because the price isn't moving as we all thought it would be. You'd expect Bitcoin selling off in this macro geopolitical uncertainty in this war. You'd expect there'd be people panicking, selling Bitcoin first because it is so liquid. Doesn't necessarily seem like that's the case right now. Anyways, Nico, we have been talking about the Bitcoin treasury cycle. Is this more stress in the narrative of the Bitcoin treasury cycle, or is this just a smart move by Mara? And of course, the engagement bait is catching on, and now everyone's just kind of adding to the FUD. Maybe we are simply FUD right now because we continue to cover this stuff. And I even had a friend, one of our close friends, like, bro, you got to stop this. You got to stop this.
I mean, I called it. I'm going to give myself another pat on the back. I've been telling you guys since October that part of the capitulation that you were going to see this cycle, you're going to see major Bitcoin treasury companies. I wouldn't even really consider Mara being a Bitcoin treasury company.
Yeah, but they do have the second biggest Bitcoin treasury.
But they do function as a Bitcoin treasury.
Yeah.
And I told you guys, I've been telling you guys this since October, and I've been getting a lot of heat in the chat, on the Rumble chat, on the YouTube chat, on the X chat. Nico's a bear. That's the general thing.
It's true, though.
Nico's a bear. Nico does this. Nico does that. Like, that is what you guys keep telling me. And I told you guys that last year was paper Bitcoin summer. It was this cycle was the cycle of Bitcoin treasury companies, for better or for worse. That's where all the alpha was. Strategy from the bottom of the bear market was at like $15, $20. It went all the way up to like 500. Excuse me. The return was crazy. And I told you guys that once the bear was starting to commence, I told you guys that my prediction was that a lot of these treasury companies, especially not the top tier ones like Strategy or 21 or, any of the of the big ones, they were going to get to a point where they were going to be forced to sell their Bitcoin. Now, what's happening in the Bitcoin mining space is quite interesting. A lot of these Bitcoin miners, with the adoption of AI, are actually pivoting a lot of their businesses, or maybe not pivoting is the correct word, but they're expanding their businesses to service those AI needs. So a lot of them are getting into AI HPC, which requires a tremendous amount of energy, and it's a little bit more sophisticated than just traditional Bitcoin mining, right? So, and again, that all comes down to profitability, right? Like, that's really what it comes down to. Like, if they feel that they can use that infrastructure that they built out to make more money with AI HPC, that's exactly what they're going to do, right? So, does it surprise me that Mara sold 50,000 Bitcoin? No, not only does it surprise me, not only does it not surprise me, I've been telling you exactly this was going to happen since October, since the beginning of the Bitcoin bear market. I haven't seen a capitulation yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen this area where basically people lose complete faith in Bitcoin. And you're starting to feel the feelings of that this cycle. You're starting to hear the inklings of, like, Bitcoin is boring. I can get better returns somewhere else. All the OGs are selling. Like, you're starting to hear those narratives pop up, but you haven't really felt this full capitulation. Like, we did have that big drop. We're down 50% already. But that true capitulation, I haven't really seen it yet. Now, I keep hearing from friends of mine, Opti included, and other people on the Simply Bitcoin team, that, hey, that this cycle is different. We're not going to see a capitulation like we've seen in previous cycles. And the reason for that is because the institutions are here. Like, that's the official narrative. Well, the institutions themselves are capitulating, ladies and gentlemen. The institutions themselves are selling some of the Bitcoin. And again, it's not only Mara, which is huge, by the way. You had Sequans also sell some Bitcoin as well, right? And it's not like they're selling some Bitcoin at the top. They're selling Bitcoin when it's 50% down from the peak, right? That's not a good sign of confidence. But again, this is a good thing. This is how nature heals. This is how the market resets. All of this is good ultimately long term for the price of Bitcoin, because eventually we will find the bottom, and then eventually the cycle will start to repeat itself, and that's where things start to get exciting again. I don't know when that is. I have my personal feelings. I've been telling you guys about my personal thoughts on that matter. But this is Bitcoin. Bitcoin always recovers as absolute scarcity. It's 21 million. The characteristics of Bitcoin are superior to anything else, to any other asset. So it's just better. And over time, the world is going to come to that realization. And again, the absolute scarcity aspect of it's basically a guarantee that this thing's going to go up. Especially now that Wall Street is involved. Like, the fact that we heard last week, like, you guys have to connect the dots. And this is what we do for you guys on Simply Bitcoin Live, right? We connect the dots for you guys so you guys could see the bigger picture and not get lost in the noise that happens on a day-by-day basis, right? So last week, we had Citibank announce that they are going to custody Bitcoin for their clients. They did this at Michael Saylor and Bitcoin Magazine's conference, Bitcoin for Corporations. Now, the big deal of that is Michael Saylor predicted back in 2022 that there was 3 things that needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit, I think it was like $5 million per coin or something like that.
Something 3 million, 10 million, I forget.
It's like millions of dollars per coin. Let's get to 1, right? But he said,
let's get to 150 again.
He said there was 3 things that needed to happen. First thing was, it was the change of the change in the accounting rules. Second thing was the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. The third thing, very important, was the ability for banks to custody Bitcoin. That has happened yet, ladies and gentlemen, right? So you have to separate the long-term trend, which is happening right now, right? Which is what you're visualizing, which is what you're seeing and what you're experiencing when you hear stuff like, Marathon essentially capitulating in a way. Right.
Yeah, they didn't sell their coins, but they're opening it up too. So a narrative shift, you could say, capitulation.
A narrative shift. The same thing happened with Tesla, by the way.
True.
Right? Tesla, like, ultimately, they're one of the big, 7 tech companies that bought Bitcoin, and then they capitulated shortly after. And then ever since, they haven't capitulated because they realized, oh my God, like, look at how much money we would have made. Right. So this is all part of the course. This is like, and you guys have to understand the psychology of it. Like, I'll tell you guys, right, in your first Bitcoin cycles, right, when you were in and you were down 50, 60, 70%, or maybe you dabbled in some altcoins, right? And then it reaches a point where you freak out. You feel like you're going to lose your money. This is like Wall Street psychology 101. You feel like you're going to lose all your money. And then what do you do? What do you do? You capitulate. You sell. You freak out. You think you're going to lose all your money, right? And then that tends to be where the bottom forms. And then after that, Bitcoin starts, the cycle resets, it repeats, and then off to the races we go, right? So this is just another indication of the bear market blues and the capitulation process happening in real time. But I want you guys, that's noise though. That's noise. It's a short-term trend. I want you guys to pay attention to the signal. The signal is you're buying Bitcoin right now at a 50% discount. That's number 1. And number 2, the major news from last week, I'm going to keep repeating myself all week this week. Citibank, 3rd largest bank in the United States, trillions of dollars of assets under management, just announced, hey guys, we're going to custody Bitcoin at a Bitcoin event, at a Bitcoin conference. That is the major breaking news. You also have Schwab, right? One of the largest brokers that, are used for older people to buy and sell stocks and all of that stuff, also announced that they're going to have the ability for their clients to buy spot Bitcoin. So again, this asset isn't going anywhere. It's going through a maturing phase. It's definitely entering a new chapter in its life cycle, 100%. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I love this cycle in particular because of one reason and one reason only. The uncertainty is back. The uncertainty is back. If I tell you guys, hey, do you think Bitcoin's going to hit 500K per coin in the next 4 years? I guarantee you that a big portion of you guys don't have the utmost confidence that it's going to do that. You just don't know, right? And again, we have to go back to the past, so you have to learn from the past to, I don't want to say predict the future because no one could predict the future, but you have to learn the lessons of the past so that you don't, make those same mistakes in the future. And what can we learn about the past? Back in 2017, the Bitcoin price in January of 2017 was $1,000. At the end of 2017, the Bitcoin price was $20,000. That's a 20x in 365 days, right? Do you think if I would have told you in the beginning of 2017 that an asset is going to 20x, if I told you in January, you know what you would have done, right? You would have laughed me out of the room. That is uncertainty. That is doubt, right? And all of that doubt and uncertainty was created because of the horrific cycle that Bitcoin was coming out of leading to 2017. It was the Mt. Gox explosion, right? And that completely took away all the confidence in the room out of Bitcoin. People didn't believe in Bitcoin anymore, right? And it had this grueling 1 to 2 year bear market where essentially did nothing, right? And it just kind of it just kind of oscillated in a specific price range. Now, I feel that certainty is back. That uncertainty is back. I feel it. I feel it in the air. I feel it when I talk to people. They don't feel as optimistic in Bitcoin and the future price appreciation in Bitcoin as they used to. And these are the types of moments where it is the most opportune time to buy. And these are the types of moments that you look back 2 or 3 years from now and you're like, wait a second, dude, do you remember when we had an opportunity to buy Bitcoin at $68,000? Like, what the hell were we thinking, right? So anyways,
wait, Nico, as you know, we've been around the block a few times, right? A couple bear markets, and you said something interesting, and it makes me wonder. There's always as we like to joke in Bitcoin, there's always like a final sacrifice at the bottom of a bear market. Like there's always something, something huge that happens. Are we going to see that final sacrifice from the public Bitcoin miners or from just the pure Bitcoin treasury plays? Because I don't think it's going to come from like a Mt. Gox FTX scenario this cycle. I think maybe we learned our lesson. Hopefully we learned our lesson as a community, as an industry, the last bear market. Where do you think it's going to come from, Nico? Is it the public Bitcoin miners, or is it a Bitcoin treasury company liquidating all their holdings?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep sticking to what I've been saying.
Treasury company.
I think essentially the capitulation. The thing is, you never know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing. You never know. That's number one. You never know what's going to blow up. But essentially what I think, essentially this cycle in particular was, I'm a big fan of STRC, by the way. We talked about that on yesterday's show. But I think that this cycle, it's going to be one of the Bitcoin treasury companies. I mean, not to be specific because a lot of these people are my friends, but some of these treasury companies are like down more than 80%, bro.
A lot of them are down more than 90%.
It's wild, like 90%. Like it's
crazy.
Wild. Like I'm not going to be specific on which ones, but
you guys know what they are.
But we love the entrepreneurs that set those up. But yeah, like that's crazy.
Okay, Bitcoin treasury company.
That's crazy. And then there's there's some of those, not to be specific, that are at risk of being unlisted and stuff, right?
Yeah, 100%. Totally. Because historically, it kind of does come from the Bitcoin miners having to sell at the very bottom. But it is interesting now that we saw the hype cycle coming from the Bitcoin treasury companies. So now it's like the final capitulation, the final sacrifice to move up into the bear market.
I want to go on record too.
Might be from the treasury companies.
I want to go on record too. Like, I think some of these, just like based on their MNAV and stuff, like if you are, you know, if you do have a taste for a little bit more risk, and are fully aware that you are buying like a leverage play on Bitcoin, you know, YOLOing into a stock that's 80% down, heading into a bull market. I mean, you might hit a home run. I'm not even joking. Like I'm telling you, like if MicroStrategy goes to $50 is not guaranteed, like that to me. And
I mean, $50 MSTR is like a no-brainer.
I'm not a stock guy.
I don't think it's going to 50, but it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and no one thought Bitcoin was going to go to 16 last time, and no one thought it was going to go to 3,500. Like it, I always hear the same shit every single bear market, every single time. It can't go lower. It can't go lower.
Oh, I've been saying it can go lower.
But you just been shaking your head and you saying
I just MSCR at $50 is like crazy to me. I think it's going to hold on that like 100, 120 range where it's at.
That make me very sad.
Because you can't buy it at 50.
All right, everybody. It's going to be a great show. We have a guest joining us later today. We have Gary Leland from BitBlockBoom. That's going to be great. I have some clips for you guys, which I want to share. Ray Dalio is not a fan of Bitcoin. He was on I think it was the All In podcast, I believe.
Yeah.
And he had some comments about it. So we're going to be talking about that. And then I don't know if I'm going to be on the show by then, but Fed to inject $16 billion into U.S. economy. So let's see if we can get through all this before I have to bounce. But all right, everybody, let's start the show. It's going to be a great show. Make sure to smash that like button. We still got a ton of content for you guys lined up, and stay tuned. We're going to be right back in just a bit. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded, non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, everybody. I have trouble finding the plate. Here we go. We're back. Go to stampseed.com today, ladies and gentlemen, and get yourself a stamp seed kit. Don't write down your seed words on paper. Stamp them into a plate of titanium so they withstand the test of time. Go to stampseed.com today, or you can conveniently scan the QR code on your screen and it will take you to the website. Let's get into today's numbers, shall we? At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $68,380. Sats per dollar, 1,462. Block height, 939,164. Realized monetary inflation, 0.83%. Market cap, 1.37 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 4.57%. Percentage issued, 95.22%. Decline from all-time high, currently sitting pretty at not sitting pretty. I mean, it depends on how you look at it. If you have cash, and then it's definitely sitting pretty. We're currently down 45% from the all-time high. You guys wanted volatility. Careful what you asked for. Anyways, here is Ray Dalio. I believe he was lately on this is the All In podcast. I want to give credit to the content creator. This was the
looks like the All In on the bottom corner.
Yeah, it looks like the All In podcast.
Okay, so Bitcoin
and he made some comments about Bitcoin. Now, it's quite interesting. Ray Dalio's like Bitcoin story arc curve. He went from being like completely against this. This is one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world. He runs, I think it's Bridgewater Associates. Very, very famous, very, very successful. He wrote a very good book. It's very popular. It's like about the changing world order. Also something about rules for life or something like that. Anyways, I digress. Let's check out this clip. Let's see what he has to say about Bitcoin. And it seems like he has gone a little bit full circle, but not completely full circle on Bitcoin. So let's check out what he has to say. It's quite interesting. And then, of course, me and Opti will have a conversation about it.
Okay, so Bitcoin does not have privacy. Any transactions can be monitored and then indirectly perhaps controlled. Central banks are not going to want to buy Bitcoin and being able to hold it. So it's not just individuals, it's institutions and so on, but most, and central banks, so that there are attributes of that. There has been some question or thoughts of the development of, new technologies like quantum computing and so on. Can there be issues regarding that? And then there's, who owns it and what are the other exposures that they have in their portfolio. It tends to have a pretty high correlation with the tech stocks. So from an ownership, just the supply demand is affected by if somebody gets squeezed in one thing, they sell something that whatever else they have. So there are those dynamics. It's a long way, and it's a relatively small market that's a relatively controllable market. I think a lot of attention has been given to Bitcoin, but as a money, it's small in relationship to gold, and so those are the dynamics. There is only one goal.
What about silver?
So I mean, like, oh, was I sharing that? I'm sorry. So I mean, like, my assessment is, in all seriousness, like he's just like nitpicking like a variety of different things. You take it back 5 years ago and it was different arguments, whether the governments were going to buy it, is only use it for money laundering, it uses too much energy. Like, he just laid out a bunch of new different FUD talking points, basically. And most importantly, I don't know if this was a Freudian slip or maybe he just truly believes in the system. He said central banks won't buy it because there's no privacy. Like, isn't that ironic? Right. And then the other part, which is like,
what do they need privacy for?
Like, isn't that the whole point of like, because they always call Bitcoin private money, right? Like, why does public money need privacy? Like why does it need, why do central banks need to be opaque in their dealings if they're supposedly working on behalf of their citizens? Eso doesn't make sense.
Look, I know you guys yell at me constantly because I'm not the nicest to a lot of boomers. Like, we're gonna have a cool Bitcoin boomer on the show today later, Gary Leland. But honestly, this was just like pure boomer energy here. Look, Ray Dalio has come a long way in his Bitcoin understanding and Bitcoin narrative. For a long time, it was kind of like, just ignore that. Now he's kind of like, yeah, maybe there's a place for Bitcoin. And I really think the blind side for Ray Dalio is like, he's so spot on when it comes to currency decline historically, the whole 250-year cycle meme. I'm sure you've seen it. You've heard it been talked about. It's just, he, I think, has a blind spot because he is so kind of like China happy. Like he's very pro China in a lot of his economic macro breakdown and speculation of the future. That is his.
Do you not support the Chinese Communist Party?
Not at all. Trolling. I just don't think that the next world reserve currency is going to be the Chinese yuan. That's, I think, where we break here. And I think all of his rationalizations are him trying to rationalize his theory, trying to make the data fit his theory that he thinks the Chinese yuan is going to be the next world reserve currency. You've seen the Bitcoiner chart on this, where we do, the decline of world reserve currency. The US dollar is seemingly on the decline. We are around that 250-year mark. And we think that Bitcoin is going to fill that role. Now, it could take a while. It could be a while before Bitcoin fully cements itself as the world reserve currency. But in Ray Dalio's models, it's not Bitcoin that's rising. He thinks it's the Chinese yuan. And I think a lot of the stuff that he says around Bitcoin is because he has that soft spot for, the Chinese yuan, the Chinese economy. And now he's just kind of back rationalizing all this stuff. Like, what did he throw? Like, no privacy. Central banks are going to adopt it. Quantum FUD. It's just like, it's low level FUD. And Ray Dalio is someone that is respected, but there has been a lot of young people, maybe from our generation, that's like, look, it was easy for him to be Ray Dalio. He basically, I'm not saying he got lucky, because I don't think it's pure luck. But if you were investing money when he started investing money, you don't have to be a complete genius to make a lot of money. That's all I'm kind of saying.
I think Ray Dalio is extremely smart.
I agree, but also
I think he's incredibly talented.
He's missing Bitcoin.
What he's done is incredible. I do agree with you in the sense that it was a lot easier for the older generations to accumulate wealth than the current generations. And like, this is a non-debatable, this isn't an opinion. Like, this is this is a non-debatable fact. The Gen Zers, the millennials, like, we're the first generations that are poorer than our parents, even though the country and the world has gotten wealthier as a whole. So clearly there's a reason for that. I mean, like, I went on rants that a lot of you guys didn't like yesterday, because we got into politics because of the events that happened last week. But, one of the key points that I made last week was basically like, look, imagine if they spent all of that money that they're essentially spending overseas for foreign policy decisions and whatnot. Imagine if they spent all of that money, and they directed it towards the United States. Like, how much more prosperous the United States would be today than if it wasn't. And then who was responsible for making those types of decisions? So yeah. Anyways, we got the one and only Gary Leland joining us, and we're going to bring him back up. We're going to bring him up on the show right after the break. We're going to be right back.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Leland, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledn.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY. All right, everybody, we are back. We got Gary Leland in the house. Guys, go to bitkey.world today. Use promo code SIMPLY. You'll get yourself a nice discount. It's one of the easiest hardware wallets to use on the market today. Again, use promo code SIMPLY to get 20% off anything on the bitkey.world store. Anyways, I do want to welcome our guests. We got Gary Leland in the house. Gary, thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, man?
Good. Long time no see. Not that long no talk, but long time no see.
Has been a long time, Gary. Gary, I do want to go over some of the trending news topics that we have today. Want to get your opinions on them. First, let's start off with the Forbes headline article, which I found quite interesting. We were covering it on yesterday's show. It was quite unpopular, this topic. And I'm going to connect it with some breaking news that just was released this morning at 8:48 a.m. The Fed to inject $16 billion in U.S. economy, according to Kalisha. I think this is one of the betting platforms, right, Opti? And this goes line in line with what Arthur Hayes was saying yesterday when we were reading his famous Substack article. He was making the case that historically speaking, every time the United States has entered a conflict in the United States, the Federal Reserve steps in to act as a backstop to make sure that the economy isn't affected by the conflict. Already, gas prices have gone up. Of course, I mean, that region is very energy, heavy. It produces a lot of energy, so it makes total sense in that regard. And then check out this article by Forbes. It's almost as if they were reading Arthur Hayes' Substack article. The Forbes article says number goes up. Iran conflict has Bitcoin bulls eyeing 500,000, which sounds absolutely terrible in a way. And in fact, they did read the Arthur Hayes Substack post.
Yeah, there he is.
Arthur Hayes, the co-founder of BitMEX and one of the most followed macro traders in crypto, laid out a provocative Bitcoin price prediction in a March 1st post. His argument: every U.S. military engagement in the Middle East since the Gulf War has eventually been funded by money printing. Iran will be no different. The longer Trump lingers in Iran, the higher the likelihood of the Fed printing money to support the Pax Americana war machine. His Bitcoin price target, take a seat. Sounds a little bit hopium to me, but I'll take it. $500,000 to $750,000 contingent on the Federal Reserve shifting back to quantitative easing. That remains a long-term call rather than a near-term forecast, though his earlier prediction of $200,000 Bitcoin by March 2026 has not materialized. Now, the reason I brought up that Kalishi post is shortly after.
It's Kaushi.
Oh, thank you, bro. I don't know, man. Kalishi, Kaushi. I don't know how
Sound
to say
it out. Sound it out.
I don't know, bro. I didn't get here because I know how to read, bro. Okay. So
I think you did a fine job. I understood.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate the support, Gary.
And Opti, mind your own damn business over there. You're talking to me.
All right. What did you say, Kaushi?
It's Kaushi, bro.
Okay, what did I say? Kalishi.
There's no E in it. I have to agree. Yeah.
It's Game of Thrones, bro. I'm thinking of Khaleesi. Anyways, so this goes. I'm gonna mute you. This goes hand in hand with the theory of Arthur Hayes in regards to the Fed would step in and essentially prop up the U.S. economy while the U.S. Engaged in another major war in the Middle East and breaking just in from Khaleesi, Fed to inject $16 billion in U.S. economy. So this could just be the very beginning of this. We also have news that gas prices have been going up due to the conflict. It seems like the stock market hasn't been affected yet. That's what you were saying?
No, it tanked this morning. It's Bloody Tuesday. So I think maybe there was a delay for the markets to react to the war, but today things are repricing.
So, and historically speaking, and this sounds terrible, by the way, we were talking about this yesterday, Gary, like the fact that like a war needs to happen in order for the Fed to start printing, and then that's going to lead to number go up or the Bitcoin price to go. That all sounds horrific and bad and terrible. But what are your thoughts, Gary?
Well,
go ahead.
First of all, if they're printing that much money, printer go burr. I mean, we're going to have to see a price in something happen with Bitcoin with that much money printing. But that's interesting. Arthur's statement, which I think makes a lot of sense. I was telling Kathy when I woke up and saw the war had started, or when I first saw it, I said, "Wow, I wonder how many people in Iran are buying Bitcoin." I mean, that was one of my first thoughts. I mean, their dollar, I don't know what their dollar is. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's in the toilet already. So now with this going on, it must be super in the toilet. So I would think that would be the first thing everybody there would be doing is buying Bitcoin. I didn't even think about the fact that we're going to print a lot of money to help support the war effort. I mean, but yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me. And maybe it's one of those things people don't like to talk about, how we're going to benefit from war, but we are. I mean, I think it's pretty cut and dried.
So, I mean,
hold on, Nico. I don't mean to cut you off, and I want this to continue, but Gary did mention people buying or rather taking and self-custodying Bitcoin. I did see this on Bitcoin Magazine tweeted this morning, which is just in Iranians are buying Bitcoin in mass withdrawing it into self-custody amid the war. Bitcoin is the flight to safety, and you can see there was a blackout here in January where it went, basically went sideways, but in the last couple of days, and I guess even preceding this war, there has been a lot of Bitcoin being bought and taken off exchanges. So it's not just theories that Bitcoin is a slight flight to safety. It's happening.
I'm glad I got something right for no boomer.
Yeah, that's wow. It's definitely a silver lining, and it proves the Bitcoin thesis of it being sovereign money. I think
this proves something else that people don't consider in times like this. In times of war like this, or when there's an embargo on your country, that we put on your country, where are you going to buy, the common person going to buy things to put their money into? They're not going to be able to get gold or silver. I mean, it's not coming into the country. This is the only form of safety you can get for your reserve in a country like Iran right now is Bitcoin. That's it.
Yeah. It's 100% true. It's a flight to safety. It's a flight to safety. People feel insecure. I think the currency's hyperinflating, bro.
It crashed to basically zero against the dollar.
So
it
had already crashed before the war. I mean, just by us embargoing it.
It's been pretty bad. I think the math I saw yesterday was like 1,000 reals is like 0.007 cents. So what, like 2/3 of a penny? So it's definitely crashed right now.
Yeah, I think I saw this morning something like, and these numbers are probably wrong, but it was extreme like this. Like when the embargo started, it went to 30,000 reals to the dollar, and now it's like hundreds of thousands to the dollar.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. But anyways, that's the news coming from the Middle East. It's so terrible. It's so terrible to say that, because it's like we had like such an anti. By the way, Gary, yesterday. Sorry, I don't know what the hell. Heck, I gotta shave my mustache.
Thanks for sharing that with us.
I gotta shave my mustache. I don't know. I got a piece of hair in my mouth or something. But anyways, but the thing that I got from yesterday's show, Gary, it was very strange, and I'll tell you why it was very strange. So, like, we took a clear anti-war stance. Like, we were like, listen, like, we don't like this, anti-war, this is bad. And to our surprise, it was not received. Like, it was like, I would say 60 to 70% of people agreed with us watching the show, but 30 to 40% actually agreed with the conflict, which has me feeling a certain way about that. And then the second part is the fact that as Bitcoiners, we actually benefit from the conflict because of the Fed having to potentially step in, which they already have. They're like, according to Khaleesi, they already stepped in. They already announced that they're stepping in, and they're injecting money into the U.S. economy, as Arthur Hayes predicted. But it has me a little bit conflicted, Gary. Like, I don't know what to think.
I don't think you should be so conflicted about that. You're not doing anything to go to war, and you're not celebrating going to war. And whether your politics are you want to go to war or not, that's not the issue to me. The issue to me is that because of Bitcoin, whether we profit or not, because of Bitcoin, people there have a flight to safety that they wouldn't have at all. So whenever this is settled and done, those people are going to be way better off because of Bitcoin. And if by a sideline I profit, nothing I can do about that. I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin so I don't profit. So that's just a sideline I can't do anything about. Do I mind if my stack goes up? No, I don't. Do I want a war? No, I don't. But I don't have any controls over either one of those things, and I don't worry about things I can't control.
I like that. That's some Gary Leland wisdom right there. Anyways, before we get into the culture to talk about the longest running Bitcoin conference, BitBlockBoom, I do want to give a shout out to our partners, and then we'll be right back in just a little bit.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at HIVEDigitalTech.com.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there's two major conferences happening in April. I have to give a shout out to our paid partner, Bitcoin 2026. It's happening April 27th through the 29th. You want to get your tickets quickly before the prices go up. Use promo code SIMPLY. Again, promo code SIMPLY to get your tickets to Bitcoin 2026. It's one of the largest Bitcoin conferences in the world. You're not going to want to miss it. I said there's two Bitcoin conferences happening in April. And of course, you guys don't want to miss the Bitcoin conference that's happening in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Venetian Hotel. But you also don't want to miss the BitBlockBoom conference that is happening in the beginning of April. And as I said before we did the commercial break, this is the longest running Bitcoin conference ever. Isn't that right, Gary?
Yeah, anyway, it's ninth year. There are some that were before us, but they aren't running anymore. So this is our 9th year. So that's a long time. Yeah.
That's awesome.
In Bitcoin world.
and I love the you guys have to experience, I consider this a rite of passage for all Bitcoiners, right? Because the experience that you'll get at BitBlockBoom is different than the experience that you get at the Bitcoin conference, and it's just different vibes, like different feelings. But I'll tell you my personal experience. The first Bitcoin conference I ever went to was Gary's Bitcoin conference, and it was the BitBlockBoom conference that me and Opti went through, where there was the infamous, or the famous, depending on the way that you look at it, LobbyCon, where it was happening during the era of the pandemic, and essentially people weren't allowed to group together, so everyone just ended up grouping together in the lobby, right? So it was a celebration. It was actually the first time me and Opti met each other in person. So this conference holds a very special place in my heart. Opti, could you scroll down a little bit, please? So this conference, go up. So this conference is happening April 9th through the 12th, 2026, and it's happening in Dallas. It's Fort Worth, Dallas.
Fort Worth.
This is going to be way different.
Not the same.
This is not going to be the same as anything you've been to, Opti.
So it's like Fort Lauderdale, Miami, right? It's like the same.
Yeah. When people come from up north, Europe, Australia, they're coming to Dallas, and they're expecting to see what Jimmy Song looks like there in that picture. They're expecting to see people walking down the street, tumbleweeds, things like that. You aren't going to see many tumbleweeds in Fort Worth, but you're going to see the cowboy experience. You're going to see people wearing cowboy boots and hats and big belts, and it's not going to be like they're dressed up for something. That's how they dress every day. It's in Cowtown. There'll be a cattle drive that comes by with longhorn steer. We're doing a Thursday night event at a rodeo. We have VIP section. This is going to be unlike, I think in the past 8 years, every time someone came, they go, I could be in Philadelphia or Austin or Denver. It's the same. It's just big buildings. This time, they're going to get the Texas experience, and they're really going to enjoy it. I'm curious to see right outside the door, the next shop is a cowboy hat shop. I'm curious to see how many cowboy hats we see people buying and wearing.
The Texas experience. Russ and I are going to be there as well. It's going to be great. We're going to be
Rustin's emceeing.
Yeah, Rustin's going to be emceeing. We're going to be live streaming the event, which is going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. And we got some high profile speakers on here. We got Caitlin Long, Adam O'Brien. We got Bo, we got Kent, we got Pierre Richard, Bob Burnett, Larry Lepard, always a great speaker. Guy Swan, Anders, Matt Hill. We got some heavy hitters here. So really looking forward to, BitBlockBoom 2026. It's the same month as the Bitcoin conference, two totally different vibes, two totally different experiences. Totally want to make them to both. I'm going to both of them. And what Gary has put together in Texas is very, very special. It's very, very special.
You said a minute ago, you and Anders met at BitBlockBoom. If you
me
know
and
how
Opti.
many, I'm sorry. If you knew how many times I'm at an event, whether it's in Vegas or wherever, and someone will inevitably, many people will come up to me and tell me, I found my dream job because of BitBlockBoom. I was there, I met so-and-so, or I talked to so-and-so, and they put someone in touch with me. with our cap being, we try to cap it at around 500, you can really talk to everybody. And it's not like people come in and out the back door. At a bigger conference, you're bringing people, you can't bring them to the front door. You have to bring them up to the stage from the back door, and then they go out the back door, and you may never get one-on-one time with them. Where at our conference, they usually come from out of the crowd. They're watching the event. They go up on the stage and speak, and they go back in the crowd, and then they go to the social events at night. So you have plenty of time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very special. It's very special. It's very unique. A lot of
and it's Bitcoin only. We don't allow any shit coins. We'll kick you out for talking about shit coins.
Yeah, it's a Bitcoin only conference. And so it's very unique. It's very special. And Gary does a great job organizing it. So hope to see you guys in Fort Worth, the Fort Lauderdale of Dallas, I guess.
It's just Fort Worth.
It's just Fort Worth.
Yeah, there's not another one.
And
it's probably someplace in Montana or Wyoming like it.
And
if anyone does go to the site, let me say that if they use the code Gary, I think that gives them a pretty sizable discount.
Awesome. Yeah, so use promo code Gary, you get a discount. And we'll see you guys at BitBlockBoom. It's going to be fantastic. I want to thank Gary for joining us on the show today. Gary, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Great show. 500 live viewers on YouTube alone. I like that. Anyways, guys,
you're the man.
If you guys enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash the like button, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Take care, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.